My sobriety date is October 18th, 2004. So this month I'll make 16 if I keep doing what I'm told. So first of all, I want to say I'm so honored to be a part of this group. This has just been a fantastic group. There's some heavy hitters in here, man, some heavy hitters, a lot of people with a lot of knowledge. So as I was thinking about speaking, I had to really get the ego out and not try to impress people. But, as a sister in here, she knows who she is. So remember what our primary purpose is to carry the message of how to stay sober. And so, I just want to start with that because I don't want to, I got to get that out. So anyways, Kay Lee did a fantastic job. Lena, unbelievable. Kay Lee left off on the forward to the second edition on page pXIX. And I'm actually going to go up just a couple of paragraphs up above that. So we'll start out on pXIX on the starting at the first full paragraph, as we discovered. Okay, so as we discovered the principles by which individual alcoholics could live, so we had to evolve principles by which the AA group and AA as a whole could survive and function effectively. It was thought that no alcoholic man or woman could be excluded from our society, that our leaders might serve but never govern, that each group ought to be autonomous and there would to be no professional class of therapy. There would be no fees or dues. Our expenses were to be met by our own voluntary contributions. There was to be at least possible organization, even in our service centers. Our public relations were to be based on attraction rather than promotion. It was decided that all members ought to be anonymous at the level of press, radio, TV, and films. And in no circumstance should we give endorsements, make alliances, or enter public controversies. This is the substance of the AA's 12 traditions, which are stated fully on page 561 of this book. Though none of these principles had the force rules or laws, they had become so widely accepted by 1950 that they were confirmed by our first international conference held in Cleveland. Today, the remarkable unity of AA is one of the greatest assets of our society has. And, just to talk a little bit about the history of what happened, because I'm gonna tell you guys, when I came in here, the traditions, when I'd go to meetings, people talking traditions, I was just like, that has nothing to do with me, and I really was, I came in 99 and I spent 7 years spinning through here. And, I had a sponsor, and she talked to me about the traditions and she'd share with me. And, I was so wrapped up in self, as a lot of us are when we come in and still can be. So wrapped up in self that unless it was going to help me, I didn't care. And what I had really missed was the fact that without these traditions, I can get no help. Like, now I understand more so than ever that the traditions are absolutely necessary for me to have recovery, for me as an individual to have recovery. So I just want to go back a little bit on the history of how this kind of whole thing started. So back in the mid 40s, when we were in our infancy program of this, a lot of groups were writing letters to Bill. And Bill was trying to figure out, like, he wanted to answer them all because he wanted to make sure that they were answered correctly, a little bit of control there, and answered correctly. And he was so worried about losing people, so he had this thought coming in of trying to, all these questions coming in. And then he was looking back, there was an article in 1945 written in the Grapevine about the Washingtonians. And so the Washingtonians, and just for anybody that's new, the Washingtonians was a group of people who were alcoholic and got sober in the mid 1800s. And, by this group, kind of crazy, by 1845, there was 100,000 members of the Washingtonians, right? And so this movement had happened, and by the end of the 1940s, this group was gone. It was gone. And so Bill was trying to look at like what he was looking at, the similarities that we had, and what did they do that made them dissolve, right? So he kind of studied this, and one of the biggest things, the Washingtonians, and this is kind of where a lot of our traditions were based. But the Washingtonians, they had this thing where they just wanted to help everybody. They got their business of being sober and spreading the message of how to stay sober. They got that mixed up with a lot of other stuff. They got involved in politics. They wanted to help with the legalization of alcohol, slavery. I mean, there was all this stuff that they started. They kind of wanted to help everybody. And because they lost their primary purpose, Bill figured, that's why they are no longer around, so so all of this was happening, that he read this article, he kind of studied a little bit more, and then all these letters were coming in, and in 1945, when World War II ended, they saw a rapid growth in our fellowship. And from 1945 to 1950, there was a lot of strain and a lot of testing of our Society of Alcoholics Anonymous, and a couple of things that were the main strainers was money, right? Anonymity. And, Bill's big thing was like, what's going to happen to Alcoholics Anonymous when the old timers and the founders are gone? Like, what will be of AA? So he came up with the 12 traditions, and boy, it was not widely accepted. A lot of people fought him on this. A lot of people they didn't want anything to do with it, So finally, he had kind of gotten this written down, and Earl T suggested that he write the grapevine and write the traditions. And I am going to share, there is a document that I found. I'll tell you guys, there's a really good website called silkworth.net. If you're interested in AA history, it has a lot of good stuff. But this is part, the articles, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I am going to share it with you guys. And this is the grapevine article that Bill wrote, and these are the original traditions. So I want to read these with you guys. So 1, each member of Alcoholics Anonymous is but a small part of a great whole. AA must continue to live, or most of us will surely die. Hence, our common welfare comes first, but individual welfare follows close afterward. 2, for our group's purpose, there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God as he may express himself in our group conscience. 3, our membership ought to include all who suffer alcoholism. Hence, we may refuse no one who wishes to recover, nor ought AA membership ever depend upon money or conformity. Any 2 or 3 alcoholics gathered together for sobriety may call themselves an AA group. 4, with respect to its own affairs, each AA group should be responsible to no other authority than its own conscience. But when its plans concern the welfare of neighboring groups also, those groups ought to be consulted. And no group, regional committee, or individuals should ever take any action that might greatly affect AA as a whole without conferring with the trustees of the Alcoholics Foundation. It's now the General Service Board. On such issues of our common welfare is paramount. 5, each alcoholic group ought to be a spiritual entity having but one primary purpose, that of carrying the message to the alcoholic who still suffers. 6, problems of money, property, and authority may easily divert us from our primary spiritual aim. We think, therefore, that any considerable property of genuine use of AA should be separately incorporated and managed, thus dividing the material from the spiritual. An AA group, as such, should never go into business. Secondary aids to AA, such as clubs or hospitals, which require much property or administration, ought to be set apart that, if necessary, they can be freely discarded by the groups. The management of these special facilities should be sole responsibility to those people, whether AAs or not, who financially support the period. For the clubs, we prefer AA managers, but hospitals as well as other places of recuperation ought to be well outside AA and medically supervised. An AA group may cooperate with anyone, but should bind itself to no one. 7, the AA group themselves ought to fully support the voluntary contributions of its own members. We think that each group should soon achieve this ideal, and that any public solicitation of funds using the name Alcoholics Anonymous is highly dangerous. That acceptance of large gifts from any source of contributions carrying any obligations whatever is usually unwise. Then 2, we view with much concern those AA treasuries which continue beyond prudent reserve to accumulate funds for no stated AA purpose. Experience has often warned us that nothing can so surely destroy our spiritual heritage as feudal disputes over property, money, and authority. 8, Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional. We define professionalism as a occupation of counseling alcoholics for fees or hire. We may employ alcoholics where they are going to perform those full-time services which we might otherwise have engaged non-alcoholics. Such special services may be well compensated, but personal 12-step work is never to be paid for. Almost done, you guys. 9, each AA group needs least possible organization. Rotating leadership is usually best. The small group may elect its secretary, the large group is rotating committee, and the groups of large metropolitan areas, their central committee, which often employs a full-time secretary. The trustee of the Alcoholic Foundation are, in effect, our general service committee. They are custodians of the AA tradition and the receiver of voluntary AA contributions, which they may maintain AA general headquarters and our general secretary in New York. They are authorized by the groups to handle over public relations, and they are guaranteed the integrity of our principal publication and AA grapevine. All such representatives are to be guided by the spirit of service for true leaders of AA, but trusted and experienced service of the whole. They derive no real authority from their title. Universal respect is key to their usefulness. 10, no AA group or member shall ever in such a way as to implicate AA express any opinion outside controversy issues, particularly those of politics, alcohol reform, or secretary, I don't know that word, somebody help me, religion, religion. The Alcoholics Anonymous group opposes no one concerning such matters that they can express no views whatever. 11, our relations with the outside world should be characterized by modesty and anonymity. We think AA ought to avoid sensational advertising. Our public relations should be guided by the principle of attraction rather than promotion. There is never need to praise ourselves. We feel better if we let our friends recommend us. And 12, and finally, we of Alcoholics Anonymous believe the principle of anonymity is an immense spiritual significance. It reminds us that we are to place principles before personalities, that we are actually to practice true humble modesty. This is the end that our great, to the end of our great blessings may never spoil us, that we shall forever live in thankful contemplation of him who presides over us all. And you guys, when I read through those, I was just to hear those actual words from Bill before they were all altered and changed and everything, because a lot of people had a lot of input on that. That was very important to hear from what Bill had put into motion. And all of this happened, and when Bill put all this out there, like I said, he had a lot of people that were fighting against him. but finally he got people around to come around to accept these traditions. And for me, if I've learned that, you know, when I start going outside of what the traditions are, I'm not only jeopardizing my own recovery, but I'm jeopardizing the recovery of everybody else. You know, the traditions are absolutely paramount for us as a society to thrive. And so, you know, it's just interesting to kind of look back at the history and see how this whole thing came about, you know. Some of the things that, you know, Sasha's way more knowledgeable, and Lena and everybody, about, you know, the different little things that had happened. But, you know, some of the stuff that occurred was, you know, like when Bill wanted to build a chain of hospitals and stuff. So basically the traditions were written to save our society from ourselves. And so, you know, so I've learned to follow these traditions to the best of my ability. So, and now I get to practice these traditions in my household and in my job, you know, so if I live these principles, everything goes a lot smoother. So, and, you know, and I'm sure that you guys feel the same way. So okay, Sasha, if we can go back to, okay, there we go. Okay. Okay. While the internal difficulties of our adolescent periods were being ironed out, public acceptance of AA grew by leaps and bounds. For this, there were two principal reasons: the large numbers of recoveries and reunited homes. These made their impressions everywhere. Of alcoholics who came to AA and really tried, 50% got sober at once and remained that way. 25% sobered up after some relapses, and among the remainder, those who stayed on with AA showed improvement. Other thousands came to a few AA meetings and at first decided that they didn't want the program, but great numbers of these, about 2 out of 3, began to return as time passed. And you know that the idea that you look at those numbers, I mean, you know, what is it now? It's like 3% or something like that. The people that I hear that people stay sober, 50%. And, you know, and from what I understand is the people at the beginning when it was those numbers is because they followed the program that was in this book to a T. And so that's, you know, tells me if I follow the program as outlined in this book, I can recover, you know. I think what had happened was, you know, now as time has passed, you know, we've gotten treatment centers, we've gotten other groups and stuff. And so the language and other things like treatment centers and stuff changed. So people started talking about codependency, dysfunctional families, chemical dependencies. And that language came into our meetings and things got a little askewed, you know. So it's very important that we keep the program in the book the same as the program in the fellowship. And, you know, it just is unbelievable to think about the numbers that had a success rate that they had when they did that, you know. So, you know, it's very important for, you know, the old timers and everybody to teach us about the program in the book and to teach us about the tradition so that we can remain as a society and help the next suffering alcoholic. For another reason for the widespread acceptance of AA was the administration of friends in medicine, religion, and the press, together with innumerable others who became our able and persistent advocates. Without such support, AA could have made only the slowest progress. Some of these recommendations of AA's early medical and religious friends will be found further in this book. And, you know, I know that they were talking about a lot of the people that were paramount in in those early days. Some of the publication that went out, you know, in 1940, the New York, the Times Magazine and Newsweek wrote an article about Alcoholics Anonymous. So it was able to spread, the message was spread through that way. Certain doctors and stuff. And, you know, Dr. I think it's Thibault, he was the first psychiatrist to ever say alcoholism is a disease. You know, so from people from that they encountered that helped our society grow. There's doctors, you know, Shoemaker, all these people that were so influential into Bill's and Bob's life that made change and spread the word of how this program works. You know, in the first international convention in 1950 in Cleveland, you know, that's where the traditions were actually presented and accepted. And then at the second international convention in 55 in St. Louis, you know, they had people from the outside come and talk. They had Reverend Shoemaker come and talk, Father Dowling, Dr. Thibault, and Ebby. And a lot of those people were able to help spread the word. And so I think that's what they're referring to when we're talking about this. So Alcoholics Anonymous is not a religious organization, nor does AA take any particular medical point of view, though we cooperate widely with the men of medicine as well as with the men of religion. And that's where Bill was so influenced by Shoemaker and Thibault and stuff. He got so much of his inspiration to write the steps by these people. Alcohol, alcohol being no respecter of persons with any accurate across sections of America and in distant lands, and same democratic evening up process is now going on. By personal religious affiliation, we can include Catholic, Protestants, Jew, Hindu, and a sprinkling of Muslims and Buddhist. More than 15% of us are women. So they think about this is when it was written, this second edition was written in 55, you know, look at the change. We have religions from all over, and the percentage of women, oh my gosh, only 15% women. Can you imagine that? Oh man. Okay. At present, our membership is pyramiding at the rate of about 20% each year. So far, upon total problem of several million actual and potential alcoholics in the world, have made only a scratch. In all probability, we shall never be able to touch more than a fair fraction of the alcoholic problem in its ramifications. Upon therapy for the alcoholic himself, we surely have no monopoly. Yet is our great hope that all those who have yet found no answer may begin to find one in the pages of this book and will presently join us on the high road to freedom. You know, I mean, just amazing. You know, when I read this and I think about how Alcoholics Anonymous has so desperately changed my life. You know, that hell we all come from. My son was 2 when I came in, and I was doing terrible, leaving my kid in a car. You know, I mean, that's where I came from. To now, the life that I have today and the relationships I have today with my children and stuff. I thank you guys, because you guys have changed not only my life, but everybody in my family, my children. And, you know, and it's why it's so important that we follow these traditions, because if my children need this program, I need AA to be here for them and for my grandchildren, and same with yours, right? So important. So, okay, I'm going to go over to the foreword to the third edition. And basically this is the foreword to the third and fourth edition is a lot of just statistics. So foreword to the third edition. By March of 1976, when this edition went off to print, the total worldwide membership of Alcoholics Anonymous was conservatively estimated more than 1 million, with almost 28,000 groups meeting in over 90 countries. Surveys of groups in the United States and Canada indicate that AA is reaching out not only to more and more people, but to a wider and wider range. Women now make up more than 1/4 of membership among newer members, and proportionate proportion is nearly 1/3. 7% of AA surveyed are less than 30 years of age, among them many in their teens. And just to think about when this whole thing started, they really just were going for that low bottom drunk, right? They were just reaching for the low bottom drunk. And now by the time this third edition in 76, a lot of people are teenagers coming in, just unbelievable how this thing just has grown from two guys sitting at a kitchen table, that magic thread that went through Ebby to Bill to Bob, and then that magic thread gets to go to all of us. It's just unbelievable. The basic principle of the AA program, it appears, hold good for individual with many different lifestyles, just as the program has brought recovery to those of many different nationalities. The 12 steps that summarize the program may be called I'm not gonna do this right. Los dos pesos in one country and les juice and tapas in another, but they trace exactly the same path to recovery that was blazed by the earliest members of Alcoholics Anonymous. So the same thing, as the books being translated and being able to go to different countries, people all over the world are being able to have that spiritual experience that you and I get to have. In spite of the great increasing in size and the span of this fellowship, and at its core remains simple and personal. Each day, somewhere in the world, recovery begins when one alcoholic talks with another alcoholic, sharing experience, strength, and hope. And that's the core of our program, right? So when Dr. Silkworth got to tell Bill, when you go talk to these people, tell them about your disease, tell them about your drinking and the obsession of the mind, and that gets spread. And it's just, I get so overwhelmed when you think about just this happening in this kitchen, and all the little things that had to line up perfectly so that I can recover today, right? It's just unbelievable. But really, even though it's all in all these languages and it's going all over the world, and there's conferences and there's general services and there's offices, but really the core of it is just when one is talking to another about their experience, their strength, and their hope. Okay, forward to the fourth edition. This fourth edition of Alcoholics Anonymous came off press in November 2001 at the start of the new millennium. Since the third edition was published in 1976, worldwide membership of AA has just about doubled to an estimated 2 million or more, with nearly 100,800 groups meeting in approximately 150 countries around the world. I tried to find out where, what our numbers are now, and I couldn't find it. So Lisa, thank you. She sent me something she found in 2019. We had approximately 2,087,840 members with 120,300 groups. So just to think that two guys at a kitchen table spread this that far. God is so good, God is in the center. God is the center of all of this, Literature has played a major role in AA's growth, and striking phenomenon of the past quarter century has been an explosion of translations in our basic literature into many languages and dialects. In country after country where the AA seed was planted, it has taken root, slowly at first, then growing by leaps and bounds when literature has become available. Currently, Alcoholics Anonymous has been translated into 43 languages. And the whole thing is, it's got to come from this book, right? The program is in this book. And I think that's where I had gotten so messed up in those 7 years, you guys, because I was going to meetings, I was hanging out with you guys, but I wasn't getting into the book. And so, I can't recover unless I'm doing the program, and the program is in the book. It's not necessarily the program in the fellowship. So this book is a lifeline for us. as a message of recovery has reached a large number of people, it has also touched the lives of vastly greater variety of suffering alcoholics. When the phrase, "we are people who would normally not mix," page 17 of this book, was written in 1939, it referred to a fellowship composed largely of men and a few women with quite similar social, ethnic, and economic backgrounds. Like so much of AA's basic text, those words have proved to be far more vastly visionary than founding members could have ever have imagined. The stories added to this edition represent the membership whose characteristic of age, gender, race, and culture have widened and deepened to encompass virtually everyone the first 100 members could have hoped to reach. You know, and I know that I'm going to throw my little opinion in here. I know a lot of people don't want to hear opinions, but I'm going to tell you anyway. You know, there's been so many things that have come up over time of like changing the word from he to she, or changing the word God, or, you know, the women versus the men, you know, and for me, I don't want to see a single word of this changed, because I'm not relating to this book as a woman. I'm not relating to this book as a white person. I'm not relating to this book as a Christian. I have to relate this book to this book as an alcoholic. So it doesn't matter what the word is, you know, because it comes down to what is my disease? What is that? What is my alcoholism? So I hope that we never change a single word in this first 164 pages. While our literature has preserved the integrity of the AA message, sweeping changes in society as a whole are reflected in new customs and practices within the fellowship. Taking advantage of technology advances. For example, AA members with computers can participate in meetings online, sharing with fellow alcoholics across the country or around the world. My goodness. Fundamentally, though, the difference between the electronic meeting and the home group around the corner is only one of format. In any meeting, anywhere, AAs share experience, strength, and hope with each other in order to stay sober and to help another alcoholic. Modem to modem or face to face, AAs speak the language of the heart in all its power and simplicity. And who would have ever thought that we would be sitting here on going to Zoom every single day, you know, and not being able to meet in person, you know, it's just unbelievable. And, you know, I know a lot of people say, you know, we all want to get back to physical meetings and stuff, but, you know, I still feel the language of the heart here. I still feel, I still get experience, strength, and hope from whoever's sharing from your little square, you know. So it's unbelievable the when things are written and then we get to where we are today, right? So I am just so grateful for my sobriety. I know that the traditions are some people don't want to hear about them or whatever, but if you're new, you know, dive into the traditions where it changed my life in my family, in my home, and in my workplace. When I practice the traditions, it's just been incredible. And I'm just so grateful to be able to be sober today, and be able to learn so much from all of you. So I don't know how much time I went, but that's all I've got. I can't wait to hear what everybody else is going to share. Thank you, guys. Love you all. Love this meeting. This meeting is fire. Great recovery here. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Amanda. That was amazing.